All right, well, let's get started. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, May 26th. This is the state required budget hearing and regular meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. We're going to start with the hearing, and Joe, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, so we'll do what we do each year. Tom Burnell will give an overview of the budget process and the proposed budget that the board adopted at their meeting last week. Then you can accept comments from the board, from the public, and then we'll close the hearing down and move on to our regular meeting agenda. So it's all yours, Diane, or Tom. You can take it from here.
So I'm going to show a couple things here. So let me just make sure I have it. Everybody seeing that up there?
Yep.
Yes.
All righty. So we started this process way back in November, at least I did. Well, actually it goes year round actually nowadays, but actually, starting to put it together in November, salaries and all that. And of course we had our first, our rollover budget in first part of January, and then we began with our first draft. So I'm not going to rehash all that. You've been through this the whole time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the budget and highlight those big ticket items that are in this budget or out of this budget. And then we'll get on to a couple other things because I know I don't have a huge amount of time, but I want to make sure we get everybody's questions answered. So there's really nothing all that big in this, and all these documents are already out on the website. They are out there as the 5th draft. We are looking and putting out there, and I know they're currently working on it right now, is to update our website, which will contain a huge budget document that includes all the requirements, so people will be able to go online and be able to look at all this information. Excuse me, but I will do a quick rehash on this. So I want to hit the big ticket items, and the first big ticket item is under my office in business administration. We had a half-time person become full-time with the hiring of a senior account clerk who's taking over our payroll duties and that, and it's working out really, really well so far. So that's the first big change to this to the budget. You say another item we did this year was we increased the school attorney fees by $10,000, and this was a reflection of the number of impartial hearings that we're been doing over the past year or two. In fact, tonight we have one settlement on the agenda, but those costs are becoming routine now, and a little bit more than what we budgeted for in the past. That's just bringing up to what basically our actuals have been the past couple of years. Under the area of operation and maintenance, there are a couple changes here. I just want to quickly go through it. You see a negative at the first one at the top, custodial. See a negative 29,000, and at the very bottom of this screen, you'll see a positive for maintenance. And basically, as we switched 2 people from being custodians to custodial groundkeepers, so we split their costs between the 2 areas, half custodian, half and in maintenance for being a groundskeeper. I wanted to highlight this, though it isn't a huge dollar amount, but it does add up, and we're almost talking about $30,000 in utility costs. So we're keeping an eye on our utility costs. We've had we're in the middle of a major project right now. We also have put in LED lighting throughout our campus now, throughout the campus. So starting to recognize those savings, and over the next year or two, we'll start to see those numbers come down a bit, as long as we don't have a spike in the actual rate that we're paying. So far we haven't seen too much of a change with the closing of the plant down in Buchanan, down in Westchester, because they were part of our rate structure. So we're going to keep an eye on that to make sure that we don't start to see things start to increase based the rate versus usage. Repair and maintenance, I just want to point this out. We do have $50,000 in here for sustainability projects. Has not been used at all, but nothing's been, a pinpoint for anything. We're just going to have to see how things start next year, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. You see this big increase, $71,500. This is for our copiers. All the copiers are now consolidated in one area under Steve Jensen's area. So that's just a movement of putting that, centralizing that. We'd added an extra $15,000 to our insurances. We're looking to purchase cybersecurity above and beyond what our typical is. And we want to protect ourselves about any cybersecurity issues that we may have. So far, so good, and we keep up with that. So this is one line I did not highlight, and I should highlight this now. And this is the $200,000 we talked about at our last meeting. And this money will only be used in the event. First of all, no taxes are being raised for this money. This money here is being funded by fund balance, not by taxes. And this will only be used if we find that expenses are exceeding what we have put in the budget, because we have a lot of unknowns at this moment as far as what school will look like when we return. Will there be new procedures in place and things of that? We know new procedures will be in place, but we don't know what those costs are or what that looks like yet. So this is just a safeguard in case we have some unforeseen expenses that we have to deal with due to getting back into school with our students. I did highlight this line here, the next one, curriculum development, but you'll see there's no increase. I just wanted to note that there's $75,000, the same as last year, for curriculum writing, okay? Which is a little bit different than, this is, I want to get back to, here are the copiers coming out of those cost centers, okay? So here are the negatives that are going to be associated with that big increase of $71,000. What is new to this budget is the $70,000 for professional development. This $70,000 is for the one-to-one computer program at the high school. And this is for the first year of professional development for our high school teachers. And there's an offset of at least $10,000 in the federal grants that Marvin is using to help in the professional development of our teachers. What I do want to highlight these couple here, and we could talk a little bit about, we had some retirements this past year. And one of our retirements occurred at grade level 1. And that was a retirement of one of our elementary teachers, but it really does affect the 5th grade. The 5th grade is now going to 3 sections. So it's 3 sections from kindergarten through 5th grade at the elementary school. So, in grades 9 through 12, we had 3 teachers retire, with 2 partial teachers planning to be hired. We have money in the budget for a 0.4 math teacher and a 0.5 science teacher. So that's what's added in there. So we had 2 retirements and about bringing 1 back, but it is split between 2 subject areas. Nothing of big interest happens for a little while until we get to BOCES services, and we can see a fairly large number here. It's almost doubled in its size. Let me tell you what that is. First of all, this is 3 early Bard College placements. Okay, so there's 3 in the budget. Plus, we also added additional monies for, I'm trying to remember what the term they use, but it's for students in need of academic. It's more on the mental health side of things. These are typically students who are not special ed or classified, who are having various types of mental health issues that sometimes require placement at BOCES. It's called an ADT program. It's a day treatment, adolescent day treatment that they go to as they get them back into our high school. This is not a place where they put them out for the rest of the year. This is typically a transition plan, either from the home or hospital back to the school, and getting their academics up to speed as they return in, and one less thing to worry about. One of the things I have highlighted here is just the whole section here of the programs for students with disability. A couple of things have happened here. As you knew, ESSA was new to us this year. That's Every Student Succeeds Act. We had to do our first upload of all our data, which of course they didn't do anything with because of the situation we're in. But one of the things that did occur as we were going through ESSA was determine that we had a couple positions that truly did not fall under A2250, programs for students with disabilities. Actually, speech, and there's another area for ENL, English, non-English learners. But in this area, we did have 2 teachers from the middle school retire, okay? And they are being replaced. So those monies are in the budget. So there is no decrease. Though it does look like the numbers are down, those monies are in another place, and I'll show them to you later as we go through it. But overall, it's slightly less because of the retirements, but no positions were cut out of the special education area. Also, an additional $17,000 was needed for equipment here for what is thought is going to be a purchase on a kid's IEP this year. Tuition other, seeing a somewhat of an increase here. We do have, and this is half of this increase is due to, as a part of the budget process, our school district typically pay about 39.5% of a residential student's maintenance. And those are for students that reside at the school in which they're being educated. They're there 365 days a year. We pay for their education, all of it. But when it comes to maintenance, we pay approximately 40%. This year, New York State's budget that was enacted, we will pick up an additional 20%, okay? So we are now paying almost 60% of the residential bill. Okay, so that's half of that increase, plus the rest of it is just the normal increases from year to year. Right below, we have a slight decrease in BOCES services, fewer kids attending there, so there's a little bit of an offset. Not a tremendous one, but a little bit. We see this $218,000. That was a part of these negatives up here in the special education salaries. So this is making up some of those negatives. And this is our English language learners. We have 2 teachers. Right below, you'll see we have BOCES services for OC-Ed. We have fewer kids attending, not only to Dutchess CTI, but also Ulster CTI. So we're done on both sides of it, so that's helpful for us. As we go through computer assisted, now this goes to the one-to-one program. This $356,000 is needed for the purchase of the one-to-one computers. So that's a part of that's in there, and we know about the one computer. We'll see it on the revenue side also about how we fund this. Below we have BOCES services. This is some of it dealing with the one-to-one program. Also, another part of the increase was some software that was needed for JAMF that was incorporated into this number. So that's the increase for that $63,000. All right, of course, I get an alert. Clerical. This occurred last summer, but last summer we had a retirement of a 12-month clerical in the guidance and was replaced with a 10-month clerical. So there is the savings we see from that. We have $20,000 additional for mental health consultations, similar to the EAP program, and our district physician would be looking for an outside source to help us with looking and helping us understand mental health documentation that we get from doctors, so that we know how to better understand how to service our students who have some mental health issues. This, as we see, is another place that came out of special education, another 2 teachers in the speech area that were formerly classified under special education. We're just bringing that out. We also, back in January, we hired an athletic trainer, but also you see we have our decrease. So we went from a purchase service to actually physically having a trainer here on site who was our employee. Nothing really has changed in transportation at this time. Just expecting, our CPI increase, more to come on that as we wind down the year. I have some meetings with our transportation contractors, and we'll see potentially what may come out of it. Under employee benefits, I want to quickly go through basically employees' retirement system. The rates remain relatively the same, but of course salaries have gone up, so that's why the increase. We had a slight increase to the teacher retirement system, so we're not looking at huge increases. Same thing with Social Security. Actually, in workers' comp, we're seeing a pretty good deduct of $35,000. We've had some good years lately with our workers' comp program. Our health insurance is actually a little bit of a negative. We're actually looking very good in the health insurance. Our rates were very good this past year. And the last area I want to get to on the expenditure side is in debt service. Debt service, as you know, goes towards our capital projects. Some things had gotten moved around as we went through this whole process. Really, the big increases as we see, for, this coming year, are going towards the current project under development. The BOCES project isn't costing us any more than it has the previous year. We are doing a ban. That's a bond anticipation note. So we're going to be doing that, and we will be going out to a bond probably in the next year or so for that. With our, would like to see if we can connect it with our capital project to keep our rates low or lower. But overall, budget to budget, 3.36. Any questions on the expenditure side? Okay. That's not it. Hold on. Okay. All right. What I want to look is, before I get to the revenues, I want to go through the tax levy limit. So, really quickly, as you know, it's not a 2% tax cap. It is a tax levy limit that can be lower or higher depending on a lot of factors. Our biggest thing here are our tax-based growth. This is growth that is happening in the Rhinebeck Central School District. This past year went up 1.1%. So now there's 1.1% more properties value to be able to pick up this on their tax levy. So adding this 1.1% in effect lowers everybody's tax increase from the prior, your tax increase from the prior year. Your tax is levied. Our tax growth, or the allowable levy growth factor, the lesser of 2% of the CPI. The CPI is 1.81%, not to the 2%, slightly below. And as we get down here, really where it works out is we could have a tax levy increase of 3.16, okay? So we are under the 3.16. We're, I think, at 2.93. So the board asked that we come in under that, and for the second year in a row, we are below that levy amount. So let's get over to what does that all mean. So we see here the prior year, just short of $30 million. Now we're looking at about 30.7. 875,000 or 2.93% increase. We could go up to 3.16, but we were able to lower the tax levy, be below it, even with some kind of bad news as we go along here. Interest on earnings. I originally had started at 100,000 earlier this year, but as everybody knows, interest rates have just dropped off the roof. And even if at the current rate, we'll not get 50,000. So we're hoping for some rebound there. The next area here is gifts and donations, $150,000. This is an anticipated gift from the Rhinebeck Science Foundation for the one-to-one computers. So I'm budgeting for that. So it does become imperative that they're able to do that. But also what I wanted to show here is an A3289 is an additional $73,000 that we have received from Senator Serino and Assemblyman Cahill that received it, I guess it's been about a year and a half now, we were waiting to save it for a rainy day, and that rainy day came. We're going to help use those monies towards the one-to-one computing. And this last line down here we see is our appropriated fund balance, which is $950,000. It's an increase of $100,000. But in reality, it's $200,000 because as we began this process, we were at $750,000 of appropriated fund balance. And so we increased that by 200 from 750 to 950. And once again, these are monies that were earned in prior years. And the idea here is that we would only use that extra 200,000 if we have some unexpected expenses that we were unaware of. And the board would be fully aware of anything that we might need to use in that account, because I will need to come to you, the board, to let them know how we plan to use those money. So I'm hoping we not have to do it, but it gives us a little bit of a safeguard in case of anything unforeseen. So as we look at the bottom, we see the tax levy could have been about 30.8 million. With this budget is 68,815 below the tax levy limit. Any questions on the revenue side? Okay. Oop. I get to one more thing, missed it. Come on. Of course, I want to get to the one that's right under everything. Oh. Sorry about that, guys. The one I'm trying to get to is right underneath where I got to stop sharing. There we go. Got it. Okay. This is a school district budget notice that typically goes out in our budget brochure. This is a required budget notice. This will be going out to the public next week in a mailer. Okay. We are not going to have a budget brochure this year. Just not enough time due to the changes in the dates for the budget vote and school board member election, and the time in which we had to adopt the budget. So it just was not the time. So you will be receiving this in the mail shortly, next week actually. So the idea here is it breaks down what last year's budget was. All right, that's this column right here, the 2019-20. Here's the 2021 school year, in which it gets broken down by the total amount increase from the prior year, budget to budget, the consumer price index change. But more importantly, it breaks it down by the three components down at the bottom. This is the breakdown between administrative, program, and capital. when our budget brochure is available on the website, you will be able to break it down by each of these three components. Here's the three components for the current year. And out here in the final column is contingency budget. What happens if the June 9th vote fails? So what does contingency mean? Okay, contingency means we're not allowed to increase the tax levy. You see here, the tax levy is this year is $29,860,484. If we have a budget defeat, that becomes, and there is a, well, whether there's a second vote or not is yet to be determined yet. But as you see, that becomes the tax levy in the next year, okay? So what happens in that case? We're not allowed to increase that $875,000. We will need to cut our budgets by the $875,000. And you'll see three new buckets down here dealing with admin, program, and capital. We will not be able to, exceed these numbers. So we'll have to watch very carefully as if that was to happen. And with the rest of it, we anticipate next year the STAR savings to be approximately $598. Now, this year's vote is done by mail-in ballots. They have been mailed out, so they are in the mail. They should be showing up at our in our voters' hands in the next couple of days. They need to be returned to us. They have to be in our hands by June 9th, 5 o'clock. So there is nothing about postmarks or anything like that. So you have to make sure you get a quick turnaround and get those ballots back in the mail to the school district. So that's a very big difference than in years prior. So just please be aware that it's a very short turnaround, and we can only count those ballots we receive by 5 o'clock, Tuesday, June 9th. Okay?
Just to be clear, people must mail them in. They can't try to drop them off at the school on June 9th, right? They must mail them in.
Correct. They're saying they should be mailed in. Don't be coming expecting us to open the door and take your ballots. So they do need to be mailed to us. We will have somebody down at the post office at 5 o'clock to pick up anything they might possibly get that we did not receive earlier that day. We'll make sure that we got every last vote that gets to the mail to the post office. But Whitney would be a better judge. She is the person who is going to ensure that she's there to help with the what they call poll inspectors to make sure that all the votes are valid and counted for properly. But that's Whitney's part to making sure we have all the ballots that are through the post office. So we're making sure that someone's there, but they should be going through the post office. We don't want people to show up here and just drop them off. We prefer that if they're going to do that, go down to the post office, drop it off there. We'll make sure we have somebody there at 5 o'clock to pick up any stragglers.
Why didn't they get
mailed? If I said anything wrong, please let me know.
Mark? Mark, did you have something to say?
No, that wasn't me.
I think it was Bob's iPad.
Oh. So, Tom, I just want to clarify that we haven't received any clarification about whether if the budget is defeated, if it can be put up for another vote. We still don't have clarification on that?
No, we've heard some rumors, but no clarification. Unless, Joe, you know something I don't know.
Nope, not as of today.
And based on the timing, it looks like there wouldn't be time for a revote at this time.
That's up in the air. Anything can be changed by executive order at this point, so that is still undecided.
So that's just really important to note that, I mean, if we cannot put if the budget vote goes down, we can't, if it's possible that we wouldn't be able to put it up again, you know, that would mean it's just short of $1 million we'd have to cut out of the budget at that point.
At this moment, that's an accurate statement.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of possibilities. We've heard rumors about, I know that June 23rd is an in-person vote for the primaries, that potentially going to do it then, but it's like, well, the schools don't hold those. So it's not like we hold those. I just don't see how we could turn it around by that time. I've also heard a rumor that it could happen later in the summer and that we would have to adopt a modified contingency budget for July 1st that would get us through the vote date, whenever that may be. But that's all speculation. As far as I know, there's only one vote.
And so the ballots are in the mail now, so people should have them within the next several days. If someone doesn't receive their ballot, can they call the school, or what should they do if they don't receive one?
Yeah, they should call Whitney Dropper at 871-5500, or they can email her at, best thing is to go to the website to get it, because it's WDRUKER@rhinebeckcsd.org. It's the email, but better off going to our website to find that. I don't think anybody's listening, writing that down real quickly.
And then I think the other thing to note is that the results will not be given that night as has been in the past. It won't be the night of the budget vote. It will be the next day, right, on the 10th, is that correct?
Well, it's supposed to happen 24 hours after the counts are final.
Hang on, let's be clear about that. The board is required to certify the results within 24 hours of the end of the counting. So that is speculative also. That if the counting ends at 9 p.m. on the 9th, then the board has to certify those results by that time the next night. To say that we would not have the results that evening is not necessarily accurate. We could have the results by midnight on the 9th, or, it depends on how many absentee ballots get returned to us and how long it takes the poll inspectors to count those ballots.
Would we announce the results before they're certified by the board, or we just basically wouldn't hear anything until our meeting the next day?
That's really an attorney question.
Okay. Tom, anything else?
Oh, unless you have any questions.
I would just want to make sure we state publicly that there are two candidates running for two vacant Board of Education seats. One is Jacqueline Savalainen, who is running for another 3-year term, and the other is Megan Barbera, who is running for the other 3-year term. Right. I just want to put that out there so people know there are two people running for two seats.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we should open up for any public comment on the hearing before we close out the hearings?
You should.
But first, any board members have any questions? I know we went through this mostly last week, but.
These are what we're looking for at a hearing, are comments.
So any comments from the public at this time? And if you do, I don't see any hands, but if you do, you might need to just speak up.
Diane?
Yes.
Can I just get clarification from Tom? Did he say that the one-to-one computing was now going to be $356,700? Sorry, that it scrolled so fast. I just want to make sure I caught that.
Yeah, Yeah, that's not the whole computing program there. Actually, that has some other monies in it. It was actually, let me just take a quick look here. Hold on, let me go back up to it. Because there was already money in that for just things that can happen. So the one-to-one computing is $336,700. There is $20,000 in that code for typical wear and tear for computer that occurs. So $336,700 is the equipment purchase for the one-to-one.
And how many computers does that purchase?
That's 350.
Or 300. It's increased a lot since the first round, right?
No, it was 390. The school district itself purchased the 40 teacher Mac Airs just recently using this year's equipment money from E-rate actually, and the 350 student computers. That's the for students.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And exactly how many students are there that participate in this?
I don't know the exact, but it's grades 9 through 12.
6 through 12, right, Tom?
Well, this purchase is 9 through 12. 6 through 8 already have them on carts.
Mhm.
So we have their allotment for the middle school. This is just for the high school.
So we can assume that there are at least 350 students that are needing these. Why are we buying them if we don't need them, I guess would be my question. If you're only, this is a one-to-one, and you don't have 350 students that are using them, why are we buying them? And you don't know how many are using them, you just said. So how come you're coming up with this number without even knowing the number of people that will be needing them?
That will be our student population.
So you're saying that the student population is 350 students?
Yes.
9 through 12, yes, Bob.
Thank you. Is that up or down from last year?
About the same.
How many students exactly are we dealing with, period?
In the entire school district?
Yes.
956 today.
And would that be up or down from last year?
Down.
Down. And we're in a time when we know that everybody's hurting because they got laid off all over the place. So if we have fewer students and more parents not making nearly as much money, why do we have to have that increase at all? I mean, it just doesn't seem logical to me that we're going to sit here and tell parents, gee, we know you're out of work, but we're going to raise your taxes anyway because we're allowed to. I mean, why can't we work out a budget that would be a little fairer to the people that are going to be paying these taxes, realizing that they're not making quite as much this year as they did last year or the year before? And I mean, when it comes right down to it, we're looking at student enrollment continually decreasing, and yet the taxes have never even held. I don't understand that. I'm willing to let you explain it to me.
I just put the numbers together.
That doesn't answer the question though, does it? I mean, where are you coming up with these numbers with these things in mind? You've got fewer students and more people out of work. Why couldn't you make the numbers work around the fewer students and more people out of work? Why are we just concerned with, oh, gee, we're allowed to raise it 3%, so we're going to raise it only 2.9%?
Bob, let me respond. Bob, do you want to hear an answer, Bob? Or if you just want to make a comment, that's fine.
No, I'm not commenting. I want to hear an answer. I'm going to shut up.
Well, the hearing is for commenting, Bob. That's what we're here for. But I will tell you that it's our goal to maintain the programs and services that we have, not to cut programs and services for our children. And that's what this budget intends to do. Could we have a lower budget? Sure. Would we be cutting services to our kids? Sure. We don't think that's what our community wants.
What would we be cutting if we're losing students? You don't have as many students, Joe, and yet nothing comes down.
Bob, we had already cut an elementary school teacher from our budget because we're down one class at the elementary school. So that answers your question.
Are there any other public comment? I don't see any other public comment. I just want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity to make public comment on the hearing. All right.
Diane, you can close the hearing at any point, and then we can go right into our regular meeting.
All right, we're going to close the budget hearing at this time and move on to our regular Board of Education meeting. Can I have an approval of the minutes of the May 19th, 2020 special meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes? All those in favor? Okay, that passes. We have another opportunity at this time for public comment. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, we're going to move on to reports and discussion. We'll start with policy.
You're muted, Liz.
Oh,
Unmute, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so our meeting was on the 14th, and we started off with reviewing policy number 9410, instructional substitute compensation. And we added language that the district will notify the RTA president when an RTA leave replacement appointment is hired and/or their appointment extended for 5 months or longer. We also reviewed policy number 4516.1, technology responsible use policy for middle and high school students. After having consulted with a variety of school districts, Steve Jensen put together a basic policy for addressing the responsibility of our students and staff when using the computers and internet loaned through our district. This is in response to the one-for-one computer program that we're going to be doing next year. A few areas that we felt needed more discussion were how we were going to address damaged computers, either by requiring parents to purchase insurance or have the district purchase insurance. The cost premium of the insurance plan for the district, after having consulted with other school districts and assessing our experience of minimal damage to our computers in the school, far exceeds the cost of replacing and repairing the device. We also felt that asking parents to purchase insurance was not the desired path. We talked about perhaps instituting a 3-strike policy for holding students responsible for replacing their damaged computers. We do have the ability to repair computers in-house, and the district is purchasing an Apple Care program, which is a direct line to the Apple people for repairing and diagnosing computer damage. Steve is also purchasing purple protective hard plastic cases for the computers, which will have our Rhinebeck district Hawk logo on them. Another issue we talked about was at the end of the school year, the loaned computers will be collected and completely flattened, which means wiped of any personal user content. We will have an app on the computers for Find My Mac. So if the kids lose them or if they're stolen, in theory, we'll be able to find them using the app. Being chargers tend to suffer the more frequent damage, so we will encourage students to actually leave their chargers at home, and we're going to provide chargers in the classrooms along with additional power strips to accommodate more usage for the kids. And we also discussed clarifying which computers are for the students participating in the high school. We were talking about excluding private school students and homeschool students, and also whether we include or not the BOCES and the Bridge program students as well. We discussed, no policy number has been assigned yet, but we discussed support operations. We're required by law to have a data security privacy policy adopted by July 2020. Steve is consulting with BOCES and NYSBA in constructing this policy. The policy details maintain data security of students and staff, compliancy of third-party contracts, and creating protocol to handle the breach of data. We can revisit this policy throughout the year as needed. And as a side note, our cybersecurity team plan is not included in this policy due to its sensitive nature, but can be discussed with the Board of Education in an executive session. Code of conduct for web-based. We're going to add the code of conduct for web-based classes. Our next meeting is June 11th.
Any questions for policy? Okay. Communications.
Communications. It was May 14th, not Mary. That needs to be edited. We discussed the budget brochure. In lieu of mailing our budget brochure due to the accelerated timeline, which Tom just went through, we're putting together our budget information on the district website in a reader-friendly version. We're mailing to our constituents, which is a state requirement, a postcard with our proposed budget on one side, and on the other side, instructions to find out more details about the budget information on the website, along with the two proposition constituents are voting for, the district budget and the 2 seats for the Board of Education. We discussed the district brochure. We're working through edits. Once the edits are completed, the brochure is actually going to the printers. And we talked about website update regarding the COVID response. Steve will start mocking up a page with end of year information regarding textbook return, access to lockers and desks, and update the calendar about the last day of school. Our district has distributed close to 170 computers. And once the last day of school is announced, we'll begin a plan for collecting the devices. And as I had mentioned before, flattening the content on the computers. There's now a single launch page on our website, which is divided into 3 sections representing the 3 buildings. And then there are breaking down into grades, teams, and teachers for more information during this remote learning. There's a staff support page with resources for online learning slide decks demonstrating optimal use of Zoom and Google Classroom. The teachers have been volunteering to help colleagues with their questions. Initially, the demand for help was very high, but it has lessened in the past weeks. There is a concerted effort to have all teachers consistent as to how they are using classroom technology. And moving forward, Steve is creating a parent resource page with detailed information per grade and more tools to help up with how the students are doing. The tech email address has been receiving questions from parents. Our next meeting is June 11th.
Questions for communications? Liz, when you're saying that the brochure went to printers, you mean that the
threefold, like this is who we are. We were planning, the one we were planning to distribute to local businesses and real estate offices for people considering to move to our district and to encourage
right,
that.
okay. That's exciting. That's been
Yes.
coming. Usually communications handles this. Is the banners, are they going up for the seniors?
They've already been ordered.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for communication? Okay. Curriculum.
That's me. So at the meeting, we addressed 3 ongoing concerns, which were end-of-year plans, district survey, and the plans for next year. It was shared that Dr. Davenport and his team had some plans regarding the commencement ceremony. Graduation is scheduled for Saturday, June 27th. And we need to make sure that we ensure compliance with the New York State pause orders. So right now there are discussions about having a procession of cars take place at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds. There have been many other schools that have discussed their graduation ceremony plans, including things in a drive-in movie theater or using Dutchess Stadium. They too will have to comply with the orders, the governor's executive orders. In the high school, it's been decided that the academic and athletic award ceremony will be combined and broadcasted virtually. Chancellor at elementary and the middle school will have their kindergarten, 5th grade, and 8th grade moving up ceremonies in a virtual format as well. The principals will share that information as soon as they know they're going to do. And the principals are also working to do a virtual middle school orientation for the incoming 5th grade students as well as they enter into the middle school. Then we discussed the survey addressing remote learning as well as the social emotional wellness of the students. Right now, Emily Davidson and Steve Jensen will work together to create that survey, and it will be going out as soon as possible. And then we discussed plans for next year. And right now, we need to get some more information from New York State before we could really address those issues. There are several options and variations of plans being discussed between the county school superintendents and administrator, and the district is awaiting direction from the state education department, the governor, as well as recommendations from the CDC and the state and county Department of Health to determine any sort of definitive plans for the students and staff safety during the reopening, the in-person teaching and learning. At this time, it's really unknown if we will be returning in the fall, or we'll continue the remote learning, or if we'll have some sort of hybrid of the two. Each school district will need to engage a stakeholder group to discuss and develop plans that will secure the safety and well-being of the staff and students for the provision of instructions going forward. And our next meeting is June 16th.
Questions for curriculum? Jack, so with the surveys, so Joe, you had said you were looking for getting, colleagues from other schools to send them to you. Does this mean, since you're saying in the minutes that it's being created, that you weren't able to find one, that we're kind of creating our own, or I'm just wondering if you have an update on the status on the surveys?
Yes, yeah, I do. Of course, this meeting was last week. Every week is like a couple of years worth of time in terms of the way things are changing. But we did receive surveys from several sources. I thought I had mentioned at our last board meeting, or maybe it was at the curriculum committee meeting, that I had tasked, as Jackie reported, that I had tasked Emily Davison and Steve Jensen to put together a hybrid that they thought would best meet our needs. In fact, we are going to be discussing that draft at our administrative meeting tomorrow, and I expect we'll be finalizing that and get something out. If not by the end of this week, then likely the very beginning of the following week. So we're pretty close to hitting the street with a survey, and they have developed surveys for students, for parents, and for staff.
Great.
So we're moving forward with that. Tomorrow is the first day the administrative team will have met since I tasked them to do that. So so that's where we're at.
Okay.
We're moving forward.
And then in regard to next school year,
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to be putting together a committee with different stakeholders when do you think that's going to start? I mean, I know the governor had said the plan has to be in sometime in July. When do you anticipate
Yeah.
that starting, and how, like, are you looking for parent volunteers? How is that being put together?
The governor also stated that the state would be putting out information to school districts in June. So let's get the information from the state as to what they're looking for. So it'll happen sometime between when we get that information in June and whenever they are directing us to have a plan available for them in July. Again, all question marks, nothing definitive at this point.
Okay, but you anticipate putting, several members on there from teachers, staff, parents?
Well, right. That's what a stakeholder group would be comprised of. There's some discussion about, and different districts are talking about different things. Some are talking about creating a new stakeholder group for this sole purpose. Other districts are looking at using existing stakeholder groups like building level planning teams to do this work. We'll see what the state requires us to do.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
Anything else for curriculum? Okay. Okay, moving on to good news. Anyone have any good news? I have two. The high school has announced the valedictorian and the salutatorian for the class of 2020. So congratulations to them. They're on our webpage. It's Grace Ellis and Jillian Holland. I guess it's a little bit of good news. The local Lions Club has an email came today. They're giving a free pizza out to every senior in the senior class.
Oh, yeah. Great. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I think that's good news. Nice of them to do that.
Are you done, Diane? I'm sorry.
I am done.
Yeah, I'll just put a little teaser out there. I'll be looking for a very clever fundraiser that the BMS Student Council is planning to raise money for a cause. They did a great job with their fundraiser and their donation to the hospital workers. So they're cooking up something that I think will be a lot of fun and will be very worthwhile for the recipients in our community of the money they raise. So I don't want to give the surprise away too early, but be looking for something from the BMS Middle School Student Council pretty quickly.
Okay.
So that's the teaser.
Any old business?
I don't.
Okay. We have another opportunity now for public comment. Anyone wish to make a public comment?
I do.
Okay, Mary.
Sorry. You always get me so quickly, Diane. I never know when it's coming.
Sorry, I can't see anyone's face, so I don't have a way to determine who's.
I didn't want to distract anybody. I just want. So my comment is this: in this world where parents have been thrown into acting as teaching assistants to their own children, the differences in the way that we now teach math, in particular, has resulted in a great deal of angst on the part of many parents. Many of the approaches to the way mathematical concepts were introduced when the Common Core was implemented. As many of you know, I teach in the Master of Arts in Teaching program at Bard, where we teach graduate students to become 7 through 12 teachers. My focus is in developing the math and science teachers. I also offer professional development courses to middle and high school teachers throughout the United States, as well as internationally. I've been to Russia and Israel for this work. I'd like to offer, I've done this in the past, and I'd like to just put this on record to offer again for free. I'd be more than happy to offer a few online support classes to parents to help them to better understand the reasons and the why behind the different mathematical techniques that are being taught. Anybody who's follows Facebook or any social media sees people very upset. This isn't taught the way I was taught. I'm not going to support this. I'm going to teach them the way that I was taught. There are really good reasons why the Common Core introduces all of these different mathematical approaches to multiplication, amongst other things. And I'd be happy to offer my services as someone who knows how to teach adults, as well as understanding the reasons why these concepts are taught the way they are, to better support parents, since they are more than ever being asked to act as a teaching assistant. So I just wanted to put that out there and make that offer to you, free, as a volunteer, a parent in the district.
Thank you, Mary. That's
Thank you,
very
Mary.
kind of you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, I don't think we have any. All right. Do we have any other? Joe?
Yeah, just wanted to remind the board that each year around this time, the board has taken a segment of one of their June regular Board of Education meetings to recognize the retiring staff for the year. So I would just want to make sure we don't forget to do that, even though it will be virtual and we will be sorely lacking a sugar-laden sheet cake. But that notwithstanding, I think we owe it to our retiring staff members to recognize them. So unless the board would like to take a different approach, I would suggest that we send our usual letter to them and honor those individuals at our June 10th regular board meeting, should the board adopt June 10th as a regular board meeting a little later in our agenda. But if not on the 10th, then certainly on the 24th, I think.
23rd.
One of our two regular meetings in June.
I mean, the 10th seems to make sense, as that's the last week of school, so that seems to make sense.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. So if that's the will of the board, then we'll get letters out to those folks and ask them to show up here in the Hollywood Squares to be recognized for their service to the district.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my other.
All right. Anyone else have any other? Okay. We're going to move on to our action items. Does anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Steve?
Table 7.1.7, please.
There's a motion to table 7.1.7. Is there a second on that?
Are we tabling or removing it from the consent agenda?
You're right. So we have to move it from the consent agenda first. So
Yeah, let's do that first.
we're going to remove it from the consent agenda first. Okay. And then I do have just a question on one. Do you want me to remove it from the consent agenda? Or just...
If it requires discussion, then you should remove it.
So can I move 7.1.2?
Sure.
I need a second for that.
Second.
So all in favor of removing from the consent agenda 7.1.2 and 7.1.7 from the consent agenda? Okay, that's in favor. Okay. So can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following consent items minus those two items?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, motion passes. So now let's go back to those items for discussion. So the 7.1.2 that was removed. So my question on that is, this had come up before, under the extra classroom fund, there's still a lot of money in the class of 2017. I think we'd asked about that before, and Ed had said it was getting taken care of, but it's still there, so I'm asking about it again.
Yeah, those monies are going to be, actually, that came up this past week, actually, by one of by Dr. Davenport, and those monies are going to be moved, and I think they already, no, I'm not sure, but they'll be moved very shortly to the student organization, and that's the high school student council. So those monies are going to be moved to that account.
Okay. That was it. Can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the treasurer's report, general fund, and extra classroom fund, April 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Other discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And then, so can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint an additional spring sports coach retroactive to an effective date of March 13th, 2020?
So moved.
Need a second on that.
Oh, second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, why are we being asked to approve something from March now that the season's over?
As I explained to the board in my email earlier today, that was an administrative foul-up. Dr. Davenport did not provide me with a memo approving that coach. He thought that she had been approved. She had not been approved. I had never gotten a memo to that extent. She provided the duties that the other coaches did this spring. And I'm recommending that appointment retroactive to May 13th, when it should have been done in the first place.
So Joe, there was a request earlier for some additional information. I'm just wondering if we can table this to our next meeting so we can get the additional information.
You can, certainly. I did send the board an email shortly before the start of the board meeting responding to your email, Diane. But certainly, well, I get it late. I can only respond to it so quickly. But feel free to table it. That's fine.
All right. I have a motion to table 7.1.7.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of tabling 7.1.7? Okay. Okay, can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to grant tenure to Jeff Palazzolo in the tenure area of school counseling and guidance effective August 1st, 2020, and may be revoked by the Board of Education up until that time?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Just like to say congratulations. And all those in favor? That motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to grant tenure to Megan Kraft in the tenure area of elementary effective September 1st, 2020, and may be revoked by the Board of Education up until that time.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Also, congratulations to Megan Kraft. All those in favor? That motion approved. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to grant tenure to Emily Davison in the tenure area of Director of Special Education Services effective August 29th, 2020, and may be revoked by the Board of Education up until that time.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Also, congratulations to Emily Davison. All those in favor? Okay, that motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve site work change orders for the $12,089,160 capital project as follows. Change order SC-01, Rhinebeck High School BMS entry loop paving for $105,522. Change order SC-02, Rhinebeck High School BMS main access drive paving for $175,266. Change order SC-03, CLS parking lot for $186,842. And change order SC-04, granular subbase section for $40,872, all to Del Signor Blacktop.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the terms of the settlement agreement involving student number XYZ, a copy of which is hereby incorporated by reference in the minutes of this meeting, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute such settlement agreement on behalf of the district.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve as a first reading and consideration of the modifications to board policy number 9410, instructional substitute compensation, see attached.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. And motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Cassandra Jebb as a long-term leave replacement in the position of elementary teacher at the Chancellor Livingston Elementary School, effective September 8th, 2020 through November 25th, 2020, at the pleasure of the board, with a salary of $350 per diem in accordance with board policy 9410, instructional substitute compensation. This appointment is to fill the vacancy created by the leave of absence granted to Jenna Yarnell, elementary teacher at the Chancellor Livingston Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
All those in, and any discussion? Sorry. All those in favor? That motion passes. And can I have a motion to move into executive session
So
for
moved.
the, for the discussion of,
Well, we'd want to discuss negotiations with the Rhinebeck Teachers Association.
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor? Okay, we'll be moving into executive session.
Okay.
Thanks everyone who attended tonight.